Hello everyone, it's that time again, and that time is for results. This is the results show for the Right Hook Apes of Spades tournament that began on January 2nd. It is a 100-word tournament, and it has two brackets with two €200 prizes. And we're just going to go ahead and get started. We had two brackets, the Jane Austen bracket and the J.R.R. Tolkien bracket. And we are going to start over in the Jane Austen bracket. In this bracket, 6 stories are competing in the first round, and 5 have already advanced to the quarterfinal by the bye system. So the stories advancing to the quarterfinal are A Taste of the Baker's Bile, Smooth Like Honey, Turkey on Pumpernickel, Fresh Baked is Best, and Hope. So we're going to go to our first contest, and our first contest in the Jane Austen bracket in the first round is Sleight of Hand versus Choked. This contest had 3 judges. The first judge scored it for Choked. The second judge scored it for Sleight of Hand. And the third and deciding judge scored it for Choked. Choked advances onto the quarterfinals to take on A Taste of the Baker's Bile. The next contest in the first round is The Final Sandwich versus Mr. and Mrs. Latte. This one also had 3 judges. And all 3 judges scored the contest for The Final Sandwich. And The Final Sandwich advances on to the quarterfinals to face Fresh Baked is Best. And then the final first round match in the Jane Austen bracket was Not So Safe Word versus The Price of Leavin'. This one had 2 judges. And both judges scored the contest for Not So Safe Word, which advances on to the quarterfinals to face Hope. We now move on to the J.R.R. Tolkien bracket. This bracket also had 6 stories competing in the first round and also had 5 stories advancing onto the quarterfinals via a bye. The stories advancing to the quarterfinals are The Power of a Bark, Inheritance, Ugh to Doug, A Ride Home, and One Last Tea Party. So we go to our first contest in the J.R.R. Tolkien bracket. And the first story is Journal Extract, Professor Glyphendrick's interstellar cross-dimensional anthrozoologist mission to planet Earth on behalf of the Paragalactic Senate versus Hush Little Baby. This one had 3 judges. The first judge scored it to Journal Extract, Professor Glyphendrick's interstellar cross-dimensional anthrozoologist mission to planet Earth on behalf of the Intergalactic Senate. The second judge scored it to Hush Little Baby. And the third and final judge scored it to Journal Extract, Professor Glyphendrick's interstellar cross-dimensional anthrozoologist mission to planet Earth on behalf of the Paragalactic Senate. That one advances on to the quarterfinals to face The Power of a Bark. The next contest in this bracket is In Which Humanity is Not Ready for the Advanced Technological Gifts of the Galactic Council versus Terrestrial Thrills. This one also had 3 judges. The first judge scored it to Terrestrial Thrills. The second judge scored it to In Which Humanity is Not Ready for the Advanced Technological Gifts of the Galactic Council. And the third and deciding judge scored it for Terrestrial Thrills. Terrestrial Thrills will advance onto the quarterfinals to take on A Ride Home. Then we move on to the final first round match in the J.R.R. Tolkien bracket, which is Love at First Sight by Infinity, Professor Durham's Accidental Quantum Encounter, a Time Travel Practicum versus The Pilot. And this one had 2 judges. The first judge scored it to Love at First Sight by Infinity, Professor Durham's Accidental Quantum Encounter, a Time Travel Practicum. Judge 2 scored it to The Pilot. So that means we go on to our sorting system, which we go by the combined scores of all the judges added up together. So I can tell you by a score of 65 to 59, The Pilot wins on combined totals and advances to the quarterfinals to face One Last Tea Party. Moving back over to the Jane Austen bracket now, where we are now in the quarterfinals. And our first quarterfinal match is Choked versus A Taste of the Baker's Bile. This one had 3 judges. And all 3 judges scored the contest for A Taste of the Baker's Bile, which advances on to the semi-finals. The next contest in the Jane Austen bracket is Smooth Like Honey versus Turkey on Pumpernickel. This one had 3 judges. The first judge scored the contest for Smooth Like Honey. The second judge scored the contest for Turkey on Pumpernickel. And the third and deciding judge scored the contest for Smooth Like Honey, which advances on to the semi-finals to take on A Taste of the Baker's Bile. The next semi-final match was The Final Sandwich versus Fresh Baked is Best. This one had 4 judges. The first judge scored it 2, Fresh Baked is Best. The second judge scored it 2, Fresh Baked is Best. The third judge scored it 2, The Final Sandwich. And the fourth and final judge scored it 2, The Final Sandwich, which gives us a 2-2 tie on the judge voting. So again, we go to our combined totals for all the judges' scores. And with a score of 131 to 128, the winner of this contest and advancing to the semi-finals is Fresh Baked is Best. Moving on now to Not So Safe Word versus Hope. This one had 4 judges. The first judge scored it 2, Not So Safe Word. The second judge scored it 2, Not So Safe Word. The third judge scored it 2, Hope. And the fourth and final judge scored it 2, Not So Safe Word, giving it the win 3-1 on the votes and sending it into the semi-finals to face Fresh Baked is Best. Moving over now to the J.R.R. Tolkien quarterfinals. And the first contest there is Journal Extract Professor Glyphindrick's interstellar cross-dimensional anthrozoologist mission to planet Earth on behalf of the Perigalactic Senate versus The Power of a Bark. This one had 4 judges. And all 4 judges scored it for Journal Extract Professor Glyphindrick's interstellar cross-dimensional anthrozoologist mission to planet Earth on behalf of the Perigalactic Senate. I'm getting used to saying that now. On to the next contest, which is Inheritance versus Ugh to Doug. And this one had 3 judges. The first judge scored it 2, Inheritance. The second judge scored it 2, Ugh to Doug. And the third and final judge scored it for Inheritance. Inheritance advances on to the semi-final to take on Journal Extract Professor Glyphindrick's interstellar cross-dimensional anthrozoologist mission to planet Earth on behalf of the Perigalactic Senate. Moving on now to Terrestrial Thrills versus A Ride Home. This one had 3 judges, and all 3 judges scored it for A Ride Home, which now advances on to the semi-finals, where we'll meet the winner of One Last Tea Party versus The Pilot. This contest had 4 judges. The first judge scored it for The Pilot. Then the remaining 3 judges all scored it for One Last Tea Party, giving it the win 3-1 and advancing it to the semi-finals to take on A Ride Home. Moving back now to the Jane Austen bracket, where we pick it up in the semi-finals. The first semi-final match is A Taste of the Baker's Bile versus Smooth Like Honey, and this one had 6 judges. The first judge scored it for A Taste of the Baker's Bile. The second judge scored it for A Taste of the Baker's Bile. The third judge scored it for Smooth Like Honey. The fourth judge scored it for Smooth Like Honey. The fifth judge scored it for A Taste of the Baker's Bile. And the sixth and final judge scored it for Smooth Like Honey, which gives us a 3-3 tie on the votes. So when we have a tie, we move on to the combined totals from all the judges and see which one is higher. So I can tell you with a score of 173 to 162, the winner of this contest and advancing on to the finals is A Taste of the Baker's Bile, Congratulations on making the final. And then to see who will meet them in the final, it is Fresh Baked is Best versus Not So Safe Word, and this one had 5 judges. The first judge scored it for Fresh Baked is Best. The second judge scored it for Not So Safe Word. The third judge scored it for Fresh Baked is Best. And then the fourth and the fifth judges both scored it for Not So Safe Word, meaning that Not So Safe Word wins the contest 3 votes to 2 and advances to the final to take on A Taste of the Baker's Bile. Congratulations to Not So Safe Word. Moving on now to the J.R.R. Tolkien semi-finals. And the first semi-final is Journal Extract Professor Glyphindrek's Interstellar Cross-Dimensional Anthropologist Mission to Planet Earth on behalf of the Perigalactic Senate versus Inheritance. This one had 5 judges. The first judge scored it to Journal Extract Professor Glyphindrek's Interstellar Cross-Dimensional Anthropologist Mission to Planet Earth on behalf of the Perigalactic Senate. And then the remaining 4 judges all scored it to Inheritance, giving it the win 4-1 and advancing it to the final. Congratulations to the author of Inheritance. Moving on now to A Ride Home versus One Last Tea Party to see who gets to meet Inheritance in the finals. This one had 6 judges. The first judge scored it for One Last Tea Party. And the 5 remaining judges all scored it for A Ride Home, giving it the win 5-1 and advancing it onto the finals to take on Inheritance. Congratulations to both stories. Now the time's come to reveal the winners of our finals. Moving over to the Jane Austen bracket for our first final. And here we have A Taste of the Baker's Bile versus Not So Safe Word. And this one had 11 judges. The first judge scored it for A Taste of the Baker's Bile. The second judge scored it for Not So Safe Word. The third judge scored it for A Taste of the Baker's Bile. The fourth judge scored it for Not So Safe Word. The fifth judge scored it for Not So Safe Word. The sixth judge scored it for Not So Safe Word. The seventh judge scored it for A Taste of the Baker's Bile. The eighth judge scored it for Not So Safe Word. The ninth judge scored it a tie. So we went on to the that's the individual categories to separate them since we don't allow ties. And the first category in order of priority is prompt adherence. And on a vote of 5-4 on prompt adherence, Not So Safe Word took the win on that judge's vote. The 10th judge then scored it to Not So Safe Word, and the 11th and final judge scored it for A Taste of the Baker's Bile. So, with a final score of 7 votes to 4, the winner of the Jane Austen bracket and taking home the €200 prize is Not So Safe Word, written by Angela Benham. Congratulations. And as a consolation prize to the author of A Taste of Baker's Bile, they will be getting a free entry to a future contest. Moving now over to the J.R.R. Tolkien bracket, where we have our last final, and that final is Inheritance versus A Ride Home, and this one also had 11 judges. The first judge scored it for A Ride Home. The second judge scored it for A Ride Home. The third judge scored it for A Ride Home. The fourth judge scored it for Inheritance. The fifth judge scored it for Inheritance. The sixth judge scored it for Inheritance. The seventh judge scored it a tie. So we went by categories by order of importance, and with a score of 5-4 on prompt adherence, A Ride Home took that vote. The eighth judge scored it for Inheritance. The ninth judge scored it for A Ride Home. The 10th judge scored it for A Ride Home. And the 11th and final judge scored it a tie, but on a score of 5-4 on prompt adherence, that vote went to A Ride Home. And what that means is that with a final score of 7 votes to 4, The winner of the J.R.R. Tolkien bracket and taking home the €200 prize is A Ride Home, written by Mike Range. Congratulations on your win and taking home the prize. I'll be in contact with you over the coming weekend to arrange payment details, as well as with the author of Not So Safe Word. For the author of Inheritance, they'll be consolated with a prize of a free entry for a future contest. And that concludes this week's results show. If you want to participate in a future Right Hook competition, there's plenty to see on our website. Go to www.getrighthook.com and you can sign up there. Our next one is tomorrow. It is the 4 of Spades contest, which is 1,000 words. And you can get 15% off at checkout with the promo code 4 of Spades. We hope to see you there. See you next week.